Welcome to the Pitch Podcast, where entrepreneurs and cutting-edge companies come to tell us about the products they're making, the ideas they're spending time on, and the problems they're solving. Here's your host, Warren Spiwak.
Seriously, Spiwak.
Delfina Govia.
Every day.
Did I even say it right? I should be knowing how to say your last name. Like
okay, you and freaking Driscoll have got to learn how to pronounce my name. Delfina Govia.
Delfina Govia.
There you go.
All right. So first, this is like the first time we're talking like in a recorded atmosphere.
That's true. Usually we couldn't be recorded.
You know, this is
dangerous.
Great. We have this press pass.
That's right. Here we are representing.
First off, number one, I think a lot of us that listen to your show, maybe even people that are in your network, don't really know the extent that your career goes back into oil and gas. What I will tell everybody is that one time Delfina and I were actually at the NAPE Expo, and a gentleman that was from Brazil was sitting there and talking about oil and gas in Brazil.
He actually crashed our happy hour table.
Yeah, and what happened was Delfina started talking about, number one, being a woman in energy long ago, not long ago.
It was long ago.
Okay, it was a little bit ago. But secondly, being part of Brazil's oil and gas play and how they were exploring offshore. So with that, maybe that'd be a fun story just to tell, or maybe just give us an overview of your career and where you got into this.
So what's beautiful about my life is that I have been tremendously blessed to have been born into the oil industry, born into an oil family. My grandparents on both sides.
Wow, I had no idea. This is
Isn't
the
that
stuff
cool?
you don't know until we talk.
Yeah. So my grandfather on my mother's side, Pop-Up, owned a company called Carleo Brothers Fuel Oil. It was a downstream wholesale and retail distribution company in New York City.
Wow.
And as a 4-year-old, this was back 1,000 years ago before there were even seatbelts in cars, right? He would sit me next to him on a fuel oil truck, and he'd put my hand on the shift, and he'd have me sitting next to him, this little tiny toddler, with the hand on the shift, and he'd take me on deliveries.
And it's on the East Coast, and it's oil and gas.
And it's oil and gas. And so he sold out, he and his brother, Uncle Johnny, sold out to Manhattan and Queens. So I think still to this day you can see Manhattan and Queens trucks going around the city.
Wow, that is
so
cool.
that's that history. And of course the whole family on my mother's side was part of that business some way, somehow.
And did you grow up in New York?
Actually, no. I was born in New York City, and that was about it. So that brings me to my other set of grandparents. My grandfather on my dad's side was one of the group presidents at Exxon. He ran research and development before he retired. And this, I can't even remember, it was like early 70s. And then he went to work for Brown and Root before it was Kellogg Brown and Root. And he was a consultant for them. And they lived in Turtle Bay in Manhattan, of course, because he was one of the senior Exxon executives. And he was the one of the general managers of Creole Petroleum in Venezuela, where he met my dad's mom, my grandmother. And she was a secretary at Saucony, which became Mobil Oil. And so they met there. And so grandparents on both sides in the oil industry. My daddy worked for Lagobeng, which was a Venezuelan.
Who is the matchmaker? I almost want to say, is there
I honestly don't know. I have to ask my dad.
I mean, that is kind of a really...
My guess would be that he went over to their offices, and she was the secretary to whoever the big boss was over there. I bet you that's what happened.
It's incredible.
Right.
Because it's like, if people don't choose the right careers, there's no Delfina.
Exactly.
If people don't walk into the right office at the right time,
there's
not here.
Exactly, not here.
Okay, keep going on. This is fascinating, though.
It's fun stuff, right? And so from there, because my grandparents were living in New York City, my father finally, at an older age, decided to go back to college. He chose New York Tech, New York Institute of Technology, which, by the way, I met somebody that went to New York Tech the other night. I'm like, we were sitting at Project Canary's happy hour.
Wow.
And
just you bump into a guy.
And I looked at I met this woman. No, it was a woman. I looked her up, and she went to New York Tech, and I'm like, oh my God, I've never in my life met anybody than my dad that went to New York Tech. So he was in New York Tech, and my aunt, who, by the way, this is really kind of a cool little piece of information.
Little caveat.
Little side cool
factoid
thing. She was one of the first 3 female transit cops for New York City.
That is so cool.
So very cool. So she went to this dance. She was at New York Tech, went to this dance, dragged my mother with her. Mom met Dad.
Amazing.
I was born in New York City, and then we left.
Incredible. And the thing about all of that, going back to your aunt being one of the first women in law enforcement, or
a transit cop.
Transit cop.
It was her job to dress up as a hooker and ride the subways.
Now that's a fun job.
Oh, it was not for my grandparents, because she would leave the house every day dressed like a hooker.
Golly.
And so they went around telling everybody on the block, she's not really a hooker.
That is hilarious.
She's really undercover.
That is hilarious. But back to just women in business and like being a trailblazer.
Yeah.
To me, that's what you are. Like knowing your background and knowing kind of what society was like going back when you were talking about being in Brazil. It's part of that was you being a woman empowered and having knowledge that you're telling a big time oil and gas leader that you're saying, if you
got to have credibility.
Yeah, you don't want to talk to me, just let me know. Because what I have and what I'm about to tell you is really everything that's going to be dependent on whether you're a success or not.
Yeah. So what Warren is referring to people that are listening to this and watching to this is we got called down. Ernst & Young was where I was at the time. We got called down to help the Petrobras back in 1999 develop
so it's really not that far back at all.
It actually feels like like it was yesterday.
I'm talking about it like it was the 1950s.
It was a long time ago, actually, if you think about it. But we got called down there, and I had the very honor and privilege of leading the project team that went down there, and the people that we brought into Brazil to help them develop their international strategy was just the cream of the crop, experts in the field, and I had the distinct honor of leading that team down there, or actually they led me, but just brilliant, powerful people. And there was an incident where we had a meeting with the president of Petrobras, and we went to go to take the elevator up to meet him, and we got stopped by security saying, she can't go up there.
Because
women are not,
she is a woman.
Yeah, so women are not allowed on the president's floor. And it's like, oh really? Would you like to call him and tell him that? Right? So anyway.
It's a great story, and ultimately they did let her up. And I just, for me as someone who's in and around the industry so much, and I'm really a big supporter of all things empowerment and
diverse, right?
And diversity.
It's not just about women. It's about inclusion of everyone and everything, age, race, religion.
But even for me, like whether I worked at Coca-Cola or even in all of the roles that I've had in insurance, I've always had amazing women leaders that have allowed me to see things that I would have never seen before, and have also led me to be incredibly successful through just business. So it always surprises me when I hear of anybody having bias, because I'm going, what rock are you living under?
Well, I think the challenge is that we push this narrative about equality, when that's just a tiny and really misleading idea, because we are completely different animals.
Yeah.
We have a double X chromosome. Y'all are missing a piece, right?
That's right.
We're a little superior, but no, it's just we're biologically we're different.
Yeah.
That means we're wired different. That means we think different. That we approach problems differently. And Batir, our colleague Joe Batir, who is the host of Energy Transition Solutions, was just this morning telling me how last night he went to the Women in Energy dinner, and he said it was so refreshing because the women on the stage at that dinner were so relaxed and open and making jokes about, like the CEO from Denver, I think she was talking about how she showed up one day without shoes. What man is ever going to admit that he showed up because he forgot to, one day at work because he forgot to put his shoes on? Or they're making fun of, their children. And men don't do that. Men are like, oh, my son, my daughter, right? We don't care. We joke about it, right?
I agree.
Just
I know.
relax.
And I feel like that's something, because I do have a podcast that's all about spiritual growth and
some women are
mindset.
Really just completely
No. Listen, I think there's something here, because a lot of times
I was making jokes about it.
Oh yeah, that's
she just
true.
walks. She's completely oblivious to
it's
the fact
happened to me
that
so much.
yeah.
I kind of just almost
anyway.
But going back to men and vulnerability and open conversation, it's funny because my show Feed the Machine is about. I say it's mindset and grit, but really it's about emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
But I don't want to say that because I don't want to turn anybody off.
Okay, men are oblivious too.
Yeah. I thought that the what do they call that? The cervix was like a GPS device, but apparently he didn't have one.
It's not. He didn't have one.
Okay.
So your show is.
But
is
I'm
about,
saying, like, I have this thing because you know me, and I'm super like, I feel like my masculinity is in my feeling that I can say anything and think anything and just say it. Like, I almost feel like I like to talk about things like how I feel or what I'm thinking, or, which a lot of men, and especially in the world of like sales and business, it's like they're trained to not. It's like, let's talk football, let's talk golf, let's talk about anything, let's talk even about the shirt let me make fun of the shirt you're wearing.
Oh my God, on the Nape show, we were making fun of Driscoll's tie. It was a Donald J. Trump tie, and we're like totally.
It's hilarious.
You're right.
But my point is I think there is something there. And I also know that, when I was married, my wife was very much a sales leader. And what would be happening is let's say there were golf passes, right?
Okay.
The golf passes in the minds of the men were, what other guys want to go golfing?
Of course.
Meanwhile, they're willing to let somebody third, fourth, even fifth level down in the organization go to that golf tournament without even thinking that women golf.
There may be a woman with a low handicap.
Who cares anyway? Because the whole point is relationships.
No, you know what we get to do? Huh. You know what we get to do in the golf tournaments?
Tell me.
We get to be the beer babes that drive the beer trucks, the beer carts.
Don't listen to Delfina.
That's what we get to do at the.
But I mean, the whole
now
thing
I have driven a beer truck. At a golf outing, but that's okay. Yeah. That was a long time ago.
So I know we don't have a lot of time, but I do want to get into. Let's talk a little bit about your career. I know you were starting off that you started like living and breathing oil and gas
because of my grandparents. And my dad owns an oil field services company. So when I was young, and I used to hide this, I hid this for, I would say, at least the first half of my career, as I hid the fact that I started off as a roustabout on a drilling rig. It was something that I was embarrassed by.
That is so embarrassed, and I'm thinking amazing.
Well, you just don't, you have to understand where I was coming from. I was coming from an extremely affluent community where young women, basically what we did is we hung out at the country club at the pool, and meanwhile my ass is out working on a drilling rig because dad didn't have an oldest son. He had an oldest daughter, right? And so he had it in his head that I was going to take over the company one day, which I have to this day resisted because he still has his oil field services company. But to me, it was always an embarrassment. It was always something that said, "Oh well, Delfina, you really didn't come from affluence. You were just,
It's just we have all of our own stuff, right?
We have our own stuff. Yeah, it's stupid.
But there's a lot of women out there and men that are just going like, for me, I've never been on a rig at all.
Oh, dude,
and I'm just thinking
the
like, it's when you think of the gloves and the helmets and like all the physicality of that.
Yeah.
Like I have nothing but praise and admiration that you did it.
Yeah, I still have it all.
And it wasn't like you were driving around and being around all of these oil and gas, the oil and gas industry thinking, oh, I'm going to be at the top of the top of the top.
You're just doing your job.
You did a job.
And you got your hands dirty. And that's why my daughter, who I'm extremely proud of because she is so much smarter and so much more than I could ever be, is graduating this year from the University of Texas from Cockrell's School of Engineering, a petroleum engineer. And she is going to be working very proudly. It was her first choice to work for Hess Corporation. She'll be in the office the first year, but then she was pushing them right from the get-go to let her go work offshore.
Amazing.
Because she knows from me that if you're blessed with the opportunity, and she has the skills, she's got the personality for it and the mind for it, to climb that corporate ladder, you cannot be at the top. You can't even be part way on your way to the top, giving orders to anybody, anywhere, if you don't know what it's like to have mud on those boots.
Wow.
You can't. And you're not going to be respected. So, and why go get a petroleum engineering degree if you're going to sit your badunkus in an office? What the hell is that? And plus, there is nothing more amazing in this world than working offshore, especially deep water. Nothing more exciting.
That's incredible. And I want us to plan an episode where we get into all of that. Like I really, because I feel like that's an hour right there that I want to get into.
I got better people for you to talk to about that.
No.
Like one of my friends that actually almost had a baby out on a platform.
Okay, now that might
That's
be cool.
not me. I'm not that badass.
Well, let me ask you this. Only because I got to take this somewhere in 5 minutes or less.
Go for it.
So
I'll shut up.
So no, I need you to talk. But tell me today. I know you through the Oil and Gas Global Network. I know any of you guys that have not seen her show. I'm going to put the link in the notes below. But tell me, like, what is your day in, day out job right now? Like, what are you doing? How are you serving the oil and gas community?
My passion and what I'm driven to do these days is around. I had this saying that I learned from the great author and speaker. Oh, I'm blanking. This is how old I am.
Well,
it'll come to me in just a minute.
It
will play
not charades, but you want to name some things?
It'll come to me in just a minute. Okay. He used to talk about moving from success to significance. And he stole it from somewhere else. Somebody wrote a book that he stole. And for me, I've already had all the success. I've been so blessed to have been able to travel this globe and be highly successful in my career. For me now, it's about giving back, and it's about doing work that is really going to help others move ahead. And what do I mean by that? First, let's talk about non-compensated work, and that is mentoring young people, especially young women, right? Because there's so much that
there's a gap, there's a void.
There's a void, like, right.
No one's going to fix it. I want to just tell you real quick, is that about 4 years ago, my insurance career has led me to be also very involved with venture capital, helping them with their portfolio companies.
Okay.
I went to an all-women's investment group. Like, this is, again, going back to it's actually 2016, 8 years ago. At that time, women and minorities together, these underrepresented founders, they made up less than 2% of all venture capital investments.
Not surprised.
So all I'm saying about the whole women thing and the void and the gap is
they need people to turn to, yeah.
Well, in order to change who the entrepreneurs are, you got to change who the investors are, because you got to start from the top down. And so my whole point is, I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, but I'm saying that if you just have a whole lot of old white dudes doing all the same old stuff, it's probably the first thing you got to do is kind of create some diversity.
Yeah, and I believe in, and I said before, I believe in diversity, a lot of diversity that's inclusion for everybody, not just women.
Right.
And I'm also very honest and open. I don't take whining. There's no whining in baseball. There's no whining in the oil industry. And so this is not about whining. This is not about, oh, they didn't let me because I'm a woman. It's not about that. I'm a very, very honest person about challenges that we face. And there's no excuses.
And you are the queen of candid. I mean,
you
are a candid
I'm kind of,
But I love that about you. Like, that's a strength.
And if people don't, well, get along, little doggy, I got somebody else to talk to. So it's about giving back. It's about helping the younger generation get along with what they're doing. From a compensated perspective, for 20 some years, after stepping out of the oil industry, I dedicated my life, as in we talked about that one example of helping the Petrobras with their international strategy, was providing consultative services within the oil industry, but it was always to the really huge companies. And so if you weren't a big giant company, if you weren't one of the big boys,
you're not getting any love.
You weren't getting
Yeah.
you weren't getting any love from me.
Yeah.
And that's where I spent all my time and energy and effort. But you know what? The big consulting companies can go beat themselves up for that work. What I'm focused on now is helping small to medium size, and in our industry, small and medium could still be multi-billion-dollar companies, but smaller to medium-sized businesses grow, scale, and transform. There are so many challenges that are facing smaller and medium-sized organizations today, and they don't have time to waste with really super expensive consultative services that
They need something concise.
they need something a little bit more focused. So I don't want to say anything bad against the big companies, because I worked for two huge ones and loved it.
Right.
Not everybody can afford them, and most of them do not have people like me, 44 years in the oil business, that are actually leading those projects, right? And so I am dedicated to small and medium-sized businesses outside of the oil industry as well, because I know how to grow, scale, and transform companies. Because I have a blueprint and I have a different way of thinking about things that accelerates success, gets things done in a very short period of time. So that's how I dedicate my time, because I have a passion to see others succeed.
Yeah.
And my byline is this: inside every company, there's a Fortune 100 business.
Wow.
So let's help you get there. So that's kind of what I
love that.
dedicate to it.
And just for everybody who wants to catch you on your show, I know Delfina and I are going to be doing a lot of things, because we've just our time here at CeraWEEK.
Oh yeah, we're brainstorming.
We've been brainstorming. But just before we go, tell everybody where you're about your show, and then we'll kind of shut it down.
Okay, so my show has just been renamed Champions of Sustainability. It was ESG Energized, but at the NAPE conference that we were at together, we renamed it Champions of Sustainability to get away from those three little problematic letters of ESG. We're all about sustainability, from the oil industry's perspective on how much in the industry we are doing to support our energy transition, to support all of these things that are really necessary and interesting for the world today. It's a very oil industry focused perspective. And I'm hoping that you and I are going to be able together to talk about insurance inside of the oil industry, because there's some really cool, people think insurance is boring, right? Yeah, but when you look at insurance from the perspective of the big giant projects that we do, people don't know what it takes.
Well,
right?
even on this is like just something interesting. I just left a meeting where one of the other things with renewables coming out and all these different aspects of what it takes to have solar farms and all this, the insurance industry hasn't even been able to move fast enough to know what class codes that those are, or what the SICs are. So these underwriters are having to create, well, we'll just make it, since they're using wood pellets to make electricity, we'll use this one code. So anyway, it's a lot, it's fun.
So we're going to get into it. We have got to get into it.
And back to Delfina, I want to say, her show, it's so great. It makes me so proud of all the people that we talk to, just generally within the oil and gas industry, is every single guest that comes on her show, they are oil and gas people, but they are completely dedicated to making this earth a better place.
They are.
They have thoughts and actions that they're taking. And Delfina, you do such a great job at giving them a platform to share that. But
and
it
I
is
challenge
almost like
too.
a secret. But
it
it's
is
like
a secret. But think about it, Warren. Think about who we are in this industry. We're people that are hunters and fishermen, and we're outdoors people. Who the heck else loves to be out there in the middle of the freaking ocean?
Yeah.
We're outdoors people. There is no possible way that we want to screw up our planet.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much. More from Delfina coming out. Thank you so much, my friend.
Always, man.
Love it.
Pew.